Yeah, I love that concept. And actually, as I mentioned from my job previously, there's another thing we have. It's called an emerging leaders program for people who are showing that propensity to lead. And I took the course a few years back, but the first thing they teach you is how to lead yourself before you can lead others, right? And so
Yeah.
that applies to the coaching and things that we talked about a little bit already. Is before I can coach others, I have to demonstrate to them that yes, I understand the game, yes, I played the game, but I really have a desire and a penchant to help you understand the game and reach the potential out of yourself.
Yeah.
And so, yes, I think that's a very important mantra.
Welcome back to Relatable Wisdom, the podcast where everyday people share the quotes that have shaped their lives, inviting us all to reflect and grow together. Today we're joined by Darren Ault, a passionate author and former coach whose new book, Art of Balance, sheds light on the often overlooked complexities of youth sports. With a keen eye for detail and a heart for truth, Darren navigates the challenging dynamics that can arise between parents, players, and coaches. Let's dive into his journey and discover the quote that has inspired him along the way. Tell us your name and what's your favorite quote.
Okay. You want me to do that now? My name is
Yes.
Darren Ault, and my favorite quote is actually, ever since I was a kid, is a verse from the Bible, Matthew 28:18, where Jesus says, "Go therefore and make disciples of all men," essentially, all people, men and women. But that resonated with me as a young child, and certainly it plays into what I do today.
Okay. Can you repeat the quote? Just
Sure. It's "Go therefore and make disciples of all men" is the abbreviated version of the quote. I think we might have a bad connection, Wisdom. I'm here. Nothing seems to be
hello.
happening. I don't know if we.
Okay. So, if I the quote you shared is "Go therefore and make disciples."
You keep going in and out on me, Wisdom.
Why do you think this quote resonated with you when you read it?
So I think as a young person, just the idea of connecting and sharing, in this case, the Word of God. But ultimately, as I grew up and I spent time in the military and I spent a lot of time as a basketball coach of youth. I thought about the idea of discipleship and how to help lead and guide others to something that's more meaningful, whether it's functioning together as a team in a unified way, functioning together as a unit in the military, even more basically, being able to work together as family in building a foundation of faith and of values and virtue to take into the world. Not just keeping that to yourself, but sharing it with others.
You mentioned earlier on that it affected what you even do now. So the question I have now is, what do you do now?
So I'm a regional vice president for a flooring manufacturer here in the United States, and I have a team of 9 people. But we, as a team, are just a smaller part of a larger division in the Northeast. And I think or use that same concept in the way I present or share with others is again that common core or that core of values that helps guide my decision making, my interactions with other people, is built around that discipleship or sharing the faith and the foundation of that faith with others.
Can you um give us a sneak peek of how it affects your decisions? You could share an example of a decision you made and how that value and quotes affected.
Yeah, I think around the basis of faith, there's a word that's very significant is grace, and the grace in how we act toward others, and the grace in how we treat others. So certainly in the day to day of work, where when you're dealing with anything that involves sales or money or transactional kind of behaviors, you can often allow, if you do allow for it, emotions can run high, can get in the way. Things that are supposed to be an engagement and a negotiation might become kind of hostile or angry because somebody doesn't feel like they're getting their way, or maybe there's some outside influence that's driving them to that emotion at that time. So the grace element of it is understanding or giving thought to what might be driving their reaction at that point, and not just meeting it with another negative emotional reaction.
Okay, okay, yeah. earlier on when you said the quote, for some reason the network just chopped it off. Like, although it will preserved in the final version because the software is recording it high quality. But the only thing I could make out of it was make disciples of the word, and I didn't get the whole part. I did ask you to repeat it, but even when I asked you to repeat it, the network still attacked. So I want to get it the complete version so that when I repeat it, I'm saying the full version.
Yeah, sure. So the actual verse is in the Bible, Matthew 28, and it's 18 through 20, but it starts at verse 19 where it says, Therefore go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I've commanded you. And that is, again, where I kind of connected with you was through the book that I'd written around my coaching experience. And so in coaching, I found that discipleship, that being um, sharing in the faith and the wisdom that comes from that with my team, not in a way where I'm driving it at them, but through the virtues and the good nature that I share with them on the court and in the locker room, during practice and during games, trying to be that balanced, good role model for them to view and to not only witness but to practice in their lives and in the way they play the game. So I took that go and make discipleship as, be the right example for others, show them the way to play, to behave, to act toward others, with the right values and the right virtues behind every effort.
Yeah, and um, one of the things I've noticed so far is that a lot of young people they're looking for role models, and probably what's the word? Maybe they're not seeing role models that they want to be like, and what they end up using as point of reference or role model, it's not exactly what they would want.
Yeah, I missed the first part of that, wisdom. Again, I think that the connection piece, but can you repeat just the beginning of that?
Okay, I'll repeat it. I said one of the keywords you mentioned in that quote is discipleship, and another word you could use, which is not exactly the same, but it's like mentorship.
Yeah, absolutely. They both kind of hold the same perspective in a way.
Okay. And so I think it's two ways. There are people who want to be mentored, who want to be discipled, and then there are people who want to mentor people, who want to disciple people. And you happen to be someone who you've been discipling person. You, when you were younger, people mentored you and discipled you too. So I wanted to speak in two ways. How do we, quickly, just briefly, how do we get out there for those that are, that want to mentor and disciple people? How do we get out there and kind of create a system where we're mentoring and discipling people? And later on, we'll talk about from the perspective of the disciple.
Yeah, I think as far as creating or having the system, I think it's out there in a lot of different ways, whether it's, being a teacher or a coach or a boss at work. There's certainly, or even just a co-worker, there's plenty of opportunity to engage and mentor and learn from each other. The basis of it needs to be the willingness to do both, the willingness to learn, right? We have a mantra in my company that says, don't be a know-it-all, be a learn-it-all. And no matter where you are in your career, have the desire to continue learning and to continue absorbing new things and applying them to what you do at work. And I think that we need to, all of us, in order to first be to be a mentor, you have to know how to be taught or be a mentee.
Okay.
So yeah, that was my thought process, was that, and one of the things that it requires a certain amount of humility in a way to before you can become a mentor. When I was in the Navy, it was before you can lead people, you first have to know how to follow. So the same kind of concept, right? In order to be that coach or that mentor, you have to first have the desire to continue learning and be led to a point where you can help others.
Let's take a quick pause. If you're enjoying this conversation and want more thought-provoking ideas straight to your inbox, join the Relatable Wisdom email list. It's free, quick, and filled with bite-sized insights, inspiring quotes, and behind-the-scenes reflections from our guests. Just head to relatablewisdom.com/join. That is relatablewisdom.com/join. Or tap the link in the show notes. And hey, subscribing to the podcast helps more than you think, and it's free. So if you haven't already, hit that follow button wherever you're listening. All right, let's get back to the conversation.
It's a good thing you mentioned that, because I remember one of the days where I think it was in Sunday school. We were taught, they were like, in order to be a good father, you first have to first be a good son. And then I was like, wow, wow. And I was like, yeah, because it was the topic was for young person, and it was, I can remember the day was Father's Day. That was the day. So the Sunday school topic was like how to be a good son, because it is the sons that eventually becomes the fathers. And so if you're not a good son, you won't have anything to offer as a father.
Yeah, I love that concept. And actually, as I mentioned from my job previously, there's another thing we have. It's called an emerging leaders program for people who are showing that propensity to lead. And I took the course a few years back, but the first thing they teach you is how to lead yourself before you can lead others, right? And so
Yeah,
that applies to the coaching and things that we talked about a little bit already. Is, before I can coach others, I have to demonstrate to them that, yes, I understand the game, yes, I played the game, but I really have a desire and a penchant to help you understand the game and reach the potential out of yourself.
yeah,
And so, yes, I think that's a very important mantra.
yeah. I think it's in Proverbs. I can't remember the exact verse, but he said, "The man who rules his spirit is greater than the king of cities and all that." And I'm saying now that if you can rule your spirit, and then you are a king in whatever capacity, whether the coach of a football, or the vice president of a group, or whatever place you're a leader, and you can lead the spirit. Now you are like, imagine it's a combo of greatness.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
and 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 to do that effectively requires a certain level of emotional intelligence. Where again, you have to be able to contain any anger or frustration you might be feeling at a given moment in order to continue to lead through or communicate through hardships or challenges.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And the thing about leadership, and of course discipleship, is active, of course, but the thing about leading oneself, you know working on yourself, and you know dealing with issues that needs to be dealt with, right, is the fact that when we shine our lights, right, our presence, right, automatically gives others the permission to shine theirs, right. If, of course, you need to coach people, but sometimes just being in an organization, is a group, a society, and dealing with our own problem, dealing with our own issues, leading, and like, I'm just talking about being responsible to our own self, and being whatever place we are, people will just see us and say, I like that man. I like the way he talk. I like the way, he responds to people. Now, you're not even coaching, or, teaching them, or even mentoring them yet, right? But they just see you and they're like, yeah, I like to be like that man. He has this temperance, this grace. And that for me is like step one, because oftentimes you see organizations, you see places where the people that are leading, their followers, they don't want to follow the lead.
Yeah, and I think what you said is very true, in that there are times where we lack self-awareness, and especially in a leadership role or a mentorship role, where we come across as do as I say, not as I do. And it's the being able to give that positive example or demonstrate the example of how to behave in good and bad times. I think is vital to being that consistent leadership presence. And it definitely applies back to that discipleship, is demonstrating to others how to act and how to behave in all circumstances, not just when it's beneficial to you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Very, very important, because we, the thing about leadership, it's not just giving orders, telling people that, oh, do this, do this. It's about people like believing and trusting that he can take us to wherever we're going to. And sometimes people just they just don't believe, and when you give orders, they feel like you're going to make them sing.
Well,
And
yeah, a lot of time that's just bad communication, right? That's not, as a leader, giving the right communication so that there's a common understanding of what that mission or what that goal is. And that's where you have to kind of reflect on your own abilities. And if I can, as a leader, communicate effectively, then the questioning that you just mentioned disappears. It takes care of itself because everybody's on board, everybody understands where we're trying to go, and they're willing to put in the effort and the energy to get there.
yeah, yeah, it's not just a matter of, okay, do this task, do this task. They can Because when you understand where you're going to, they can say, okay, certain things will change, and then they can adapt the plan because they understand where we're going to. Otherwise, they'll just say, oh, the boss is not around, so we'll have to wait. And I'm like, like literal micro things. Like I'm like, you're supposed to know that you're supposed to do this. Like this is where we are going to. I'm like, well, we didn't know, so you, you get. But when they really understand the vision, just as the leader understands it, they can easily say, no, 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 the boss will not want us to do this thing. No, 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 don't do that. Why would you? That doesn't make sense. So look at it now. And when without the leader being in the room, when you happen to hear the conversation, you're like, wow, you're like, it seems they understand the vision more than me. Yeah.
Yeah, and as a leader too, being and where more that comes from too is the empowerment of the people that are on that team. Like if they understand the mission and understand their role within the overall vision or mission, and are feel like they have the ability or the autonomy to make certain decisions in that process, and then own those decisions, right? Whether they're good or bad, whether they achieve results or fail, all of that's okay. It's just a matter of how it's received, how it's communicated, and then how it's returned back through the leadership role.
Yeah. Yeah. Go and make disciples. Yeah. Yeah. It's very, very, very important because um people don't like people don't the thing about lead usually people see it as a special position, right? And for me, I don't think leadership, of course, having a position is important. Being a leader, is who you are. Of course, sometimes given a position gives you an office to operate in certain capacity, but being a leader is who you are, whether you are in this company or not in this company. There are people who you just see, even the way they interact with people, they talk to other people, and all their peers, right? They don't have any higher position, any of those things, right? You notice, you just wonder that this person, he like it's just different. And then when you give them an office, you then give them the what's the word, the legal authority to to take certain decisions and take certain steps. But even before then, they they acted exactly as a leader. And most persons, they just have the office, they have the legal authority, but you know they're not exactly a leader yet.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's a lot of different levels. What you're talking about is leadership by position, right? Because they hold a certain office or a certain rank that makes them a leader, and that's not really what makes you a leader, right? It's how you communicate, how you interact, how you uh, break down process to make it more easy to understand or easy to complete for your team to do a job well done. And so you can have the position or the title, but that doesn't really necessarily make you a leader. And I think of that in terms of, as a coach, when I was coaching basketball for so many years, um, one of the things I would always tell my players is, yeah, I'm your coach, and yes, I can tell you what to do, but ideally, if I do my job right, I could be gone and you would still be able to function effectively as a team. And you would be doing that from within, not just because I'm there. So
Yeah,
good leadership develops even more leadership. And again, that's that concept of discipleship.
yeah. The discipleship is to make of men a leader. Isn't that what it is?
Yeah, of all people, really, right? The people
Yeah,
that we're engaged with, certainly. I mean, again, going back to my work environment, I have 9 people that report to me, and I'm their leader by title and by definition. But I also try to be their leader by behavior and by example. And ultimately, I want to be able to coach them up to be better than I am, so that they can move on into the company, into their career, and have good positive impacts as they move forward.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you so much for sharing your favorite quotes with us. Yeah. Um, go into the world and make disciples. Now that I've heard this, it's a clarion call for one way or the other to find a way where I can put myself in a position so that I can, in my own little capacity that I have, give back to the society in terms of course, of leadership and as a role model.
Well, I would say you're doing it already by leading people through conversations like this. And I know it's relatively new for you, but you're doing a good job. So keep that up.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Darren, for that word of encouragement. Yeah. For people that they just listen to you and they want to learn more about you and what you do, where can they do?
Yeah, so I do have a website through Canva. It's Darren Ault, AULT, my full name, dot Canva dot, I'm sorry, I messed it up. Darren Ault dot my dot Canva dot site backslash author, which is a web page built around the book that I wrote called Out of Bounds. I am on Instagram at Coach Alt88, and I am on X at Coach Alt88, and I do have a LinkedIn profile as well.
Okay. Thank you very much. And thanks for sharing your favorite quotes. I'm really glad I had this conversation with you.
Thank you for the discussion and the opportunity to talk to you and meet you. I appreciate that.
Thanks for listening to Relatable Wisdom. If you found something meaningful in this episode, make sure to follow or subscribe wherever you're listening. If you'd like to support the show, you can do that by buying me a coffee. The link is in the show notes. Every little bit keeps the conversations going. I'm your host, Wisdom Okonkwo, and I will see you in the next one. Until then, stay curious, stay inspired, and keep growing.